This episode is sponsored by Team Mojo, an organization that supports leaders who care about creating engaged and high-performing teams. We provide skills training and coaching in communicating expectations with team members and clients, giving meaningful feedback, delegating, and tracking performance. In short, we facilitate team alignment that creates higher commitment to the organization's purpose. Go to teammojo.ca for more information. Welcome to Suits and Sneakers, a series featuring sage advice and candid conversations with seasoned leaders from diverse backgrounds and styles. I'm your host, Carrie Tuttle. With my guests, we deep dive into areas of team engagement, motivation, and effective performance management. Get ready to be inspired and transform your approach to leadership. Please like, subscribe, or follow to be notified when future episodes are released. Let's get started. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Anita Lee, CEO and founder of Catch Communications. After gaining experience as a contractor for marketing agencies, Anita left the corporate world in 2018 to become an independent marketing consultant. By 2020, she founded Catch Communications and established a subdivision of the company called the Law Firm Marketing Team. Anita specializes in strategic marketing planning and communications for professional services firms, simplifying marketing complexities to help clients understand their options and make informed decisions. Anita, welcome to Suits and Sneakers.
Thank you, Carrie, so much for having me as a guest on your show. It's an honor to be here today, and I'm excited to connect with your audience and share.
Yeah, welcome. And so give me a little bit more background before you came today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for the very kind introduction, by the way. I was working at a law firm. My last corporate job was at a law firm. That was back in 2018, where I recognized an opportunity to make a bigger impact on my marketing work. So I left that job and I set off to work independently, first under Anita Lee Digital Marketing. And then, as you mentioned, in 2020, we rebranded and became Catch Communications. Traditionally, in the legal industry, this industry is a bit slower to adopt to change. And I recognized opportunities for the industry to catch up on some of the changes in the market to better position themselves, to become more competitive as things have changed, especially post-COVID with the demand now for more virtual services, alternative service providers popping up. Consumers, they have ever evolving and increasing demands for what they expect these days.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a real opportunity here to fill some of those gaps, and that's what I strive to do through my work with Catch Communications and the law firm marketing.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, and I've always found you to be very brave because at a very young age, really, you started your own company, became a leader of others. And I imagine there were some people who you were leading who had more experience than you. What was that like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm really grateful to work with a number of individuals, and I've worked with a number of individuals who are quite a bit older than myself. I think initially it was quite a bit more intimidating. And as I've grown older myself, as I've gained more experience, I found that intimidation has mostly, for the most part, faded.
Mm-hmm.
I deeply value, admire, and respect the expertise of others that I get to work with, whether they are older or younger than myself. What I find unique about working with those who are older than me is the opportunity that I have to create an environment where we can mutually learn and grow together. I think that innovation really thrives when we have diverse ideas coming together. For example, earlier this week, I went to the MESH conference. That's a marketing and technology conference that focuses on the intersection of technology and humanity coming together to create innovative growth for organizations. And when it comes to hiring, I really try to prioritize creating that sort of mesh. I want to create that environment where we've got diverse thought, we've got people of varying backgrounds, of varying ages coming together. So, for example, someone who's a younger leader, they might be more attuned to the current trends and technology that's out there. Not necessarily. There's a number of older individuals who are very in tune with technology and what's happening as well. What's great about older leaders is that they bring this wealth of experience to the collective team.
Absolutely. I mean, we can't help but go through this leadership journey and get a few battle scars, get some, some tough experiences will come up for sure. But then newer leaders have that fresh approach and maybe some innovative ways of looking at things with modern technology as a bit of a lens for how they look at everything. So I love
Absolutely.
that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We took on a digital design student a few months ago, and that's been fantastic. I mean, she comes with all these outside ideas that are fresh and they're different, and that's been providing a lot of value for the team and for our clients.
Very cool. Congratulations on having a new student. How would you describe your approach to leadership?
Hmm. I think my approach to leadership um, is grounded in my values of being respectful of others, being caring, being kind, and also prioritizing accountability. That's a big thing for me. And Carrie, you and I have chatted about this previously. The importance of responsibility and accountability when it comes to doing what you say you're going to do, and in regards to performance
Hmm.
with the services that we provide. And I really try to lead from the aspect of putting those values first as much as I can, and then building out an environment that is safe. I want an environment that's safe for those in the team to come together and feel comfortable. They want to feel comfortable, to be engaged, and have the ability to thrive. Because I think we can think about building out teams and organizations similarly if we take the theory of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Hmm.
Think of Maslow's hierarchy. At the bottom, you've got their basic psychological or physiological need to have your basic needs met. And as you move up the ladder, you start to recognize the importance of the love and the belonging and the psychological needs, and you get to self actualization. So, how do we create that sort of environment? How do we build that within an organization where someone can come in and their job is more than just a job? It's more than just coming in day to day, getting a paycheck and surviving. So that's something that I'm learning. I can't say that uh, that's maybe something that I grew up with so much. I
Mm.
think in my upbringing, a job was seen more as a job, as a paycheck, as something you do, and maybe you like it, maybe you're lucky and you like it, maybe you maybe it's not so great, but you suck it up and you do it anyways, and that's was kind of the prevailing, I think, belief. And I I've got to respect where my parents came from. They grew up post World War II, a
Hmm.
few years after the war ended, and times were different back then. During that time, a lot of people were they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to get by. And what's fortunate for us in this day and age, at least, living in a safe country like Canada, is we have so many more opportunities. We have opportunities to go beyond that survival level and see how much
Hmm.
impact we can truly have.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that every day, I must say. Since you mentioned your parents, how did your parents react to you making the decision that you wanted to quit your job and start a company, were they worried? Were they thinking you were crazy? How did they react to you?
Mm. I think I told them after I had actually gone off. I mean, I yeah, I thought that would be a better approach. I think they would have been worried. I know my mom is still worried about me. Sometimes we'll be having dinner and she'll still ask, "Wait, so somebody pays you, right?" I think she just hasn't had that experience with business, with entrepreneurship. It's pretty far removed from my family and my upbringing. The prevailing goal, or at least growing up, my parents had hoped that I'd go to school and get a really great, comfortable job where I'd
Mhm.
stay for 20, 30 years and then I'd receive a great pension and I'd live a grand, beautiful life.
Mhm.
That's what I think that's what they wanted for me. Um, they didn't necessarily have the awareness, I think, to understand what life could look like. Um,
Mhm.
otherwise to be on your own and to start a business. But over time, I've shared some of my experiences, and they're fine with it now. It's truly okay, and I keep reassuring my mom that yes, there are people that pay me. It might not be a one paycheck, but it'll be multiple.
Exactly. As you think about building your company, what have you noticed are now your greatest strengths in leadership?
Mhm. I would say one of my big strengths is my ability to listen actively. I prioritize making sure others around me feel heard, they feel understood. I like listening. I'm a curious person. I like to hear others' thoughts and opinions. So when I have the opportunity to listen actively, that really helps to foster relationships where people truly see that I care, and I care enough to listen and ask them questions that matter to them to understand really what's going on from a client perspective. I will listen and I will ask questions to get to the root of the issues that a client might be facing. And I think that's a very valuable skill these days. Um, and it's something that I think really enhances my leadership style.
Hmm. How do you ask questions? Because, people say this all the time. They say it in books, ask more questions. But what does that mean in practice?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's not necessarily about the quantity of questions that you ask, but if you're actively listening to what someone is saying and they're telling you something that matters to them, something that happened to them, and you're following up with the right questions to get at a root.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, I mean, day to day, I will ask my clients questions like, "What have you done in the past to market yourself or market your business, for example?" And they'll tell me typically tactics. They'll say, "Oh yeah, we tried posting on social media, or we bought some Google ads," and then I'll ask them, "Okay, yeah, what kind of ad campaigns did you run?" And they'll tell me about the ad campaigns, and I might follow up. I might ask, "Oh well, how much did you spend? Was the timeline like? What were some of those results like?" And what I'm trying to get at, I'm trying to gather certain pieces of information so I can see where the gaps lie. And that's where my
Mhm.
value comes in because um, yeah, sure, you can go and you can buy the Google ads and run these ad campaigns on your own. But I think if you're not someone that is doing this on a day-to-day basis, there's going to be information that you don't have. Um, and that's where I come in. That's where I come in and fill that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure that skill of actively listening and asking questions also helps with hiring. What has your experience been with hiring staff?
Yeah, good question. I was thinking back on some of my earlier experiences a few years ago in hiring, and I've changed the process quite a bit since then. I continue
Okay.
to refine it always. It's an ongoing process. I remember the first time I put up some posts on Indeed and on LinkedIn, on the LinkedIn job ad board, looking for digital marketing specialist. It was a pretty general role. I didn't really know what to expect. I've been on the other side as an employee applying for a number of jobs in the past, but this was my first time actually hiring someone and putting my company out there, out on the job boards. And it was a pretty nerve wracking experience, I would say. Through that experience, I've learned quite a bit. I remember earlier I would come to the interview and I might have a structured list of questions, the standard types of questions, or even some questions that I used to receive when I would interview for various roles in accounting and marketing. Earlier, when I was a student studying accounting, and we'd have a very structured approach that the career center would at the university would suggest that we follow, and I'd go home and I'd practice and learn about the STAR method and how to answer the questions. So that's the approach that I had been familiar with. So I tried to implement that into my company, and since then I think I've taken a bit of a shift where maybe a bit more of a relaxed approach, where if I come onto a call with someone and the conversation just seems to be headed in a different direction, where it seems there's value in going in that direction, I'll just let it be. I'll give some time and some space to see where things will go, and then at any time we can always bring the conversation back to our structured plan. But I like to have that flexibility in there and just plan a little bit of extra time to try and get to know the other person. I think interviews are two-way. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity for the candidate to come in and assess me, assess me, my company, and see if it's a good fit for them, and that opportunity is there for me to do the same. I think sometimes employers will see that relationship as sort of a one-way approach, where it's the interviewer interviewing the interviewee, and I prefer to have a more balanced approach where it's more of getting to know each other. It's like a first date.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think about people I've interviewed before too, and you don't want to end up surprising them with anything after they accept the job. And then now you've spent all that time getting to know them and putting together a great offer. And then they turn out to not be a fit because there's something that you guys didn't talk about in the interview process. So it's
Yeah,
good to follow the path, follow them down the path, and maybe they give you some Easter eggs that tell you about their experience that maybe wasn't on the job posting, but it's a bonus.
right.
So, yeah, it's great to be flexible in your questioning
Right.
approach.
And it takes time to for people to get to know each other. That's
Yeah.
why I find this interview process can be so difficult. You're coming in and you're just meeting each other for the first time.
Hmm.
You're having a chat, maybe it's 30 minutes, an hour. You really need that time to grow and to learn. And
Yeah.
that's why, it's great when you can hire people through your network, people you already know.
Yes. Yeah. How would you describe the culture at Catch Communications to a new employee?
Mm, good. I would describe the culture at Catch Communications as one that values diversity. As we mentioned before, we're talking about the diversity and thought that comes from having people from different backgrounds, different age ranges come together to connect, to work together, and to build something. That
Hmm.
is the foundation of, I would say, Catch Communications, where we have that sort of environment. And the environment that I'm working on building is one that is filled with trust. It again goes back to the values, respect, of care, of having that transparency and that safety and that accountability. I think we all
Mhm.
need to take ownership of our role within an organization. We need to take responsibility and accountability for the decisions that we make and the outcomes that arise, and be willing to own up to our mistakes, because it's really inevitable that and in any sort of relationship and environment there will be disagreements, there will be mistakes that are made. I think what's important is how we handle conflicts and how we handle that sort of rupture and repair in relationships.
Have you experienced or observed ruptures in relationships that maybe could have been prevented?
Yeah, I think so. I think we all do. We all have experiences with varying relationships, whether they're in the workplace or whether they're personal, where we have to deal with rupture because
Hmm.
it's part of a relationship. I can think of an example of a time when I hired a web developer. At the time, I needed someone with more technical skills, primarily, and I was kind of in a rush to sort of just try and get somebody quick to fill the role because we had projects and they needed to be done, and that was kind of the mindset that I was thinking in. So I put up the job post and started scanning through the resumes, went through the process, interviewed a few candidates, and came across one individual who had an impressive background on his resume, and he seemed very confident in his abilities. He seemed like a great fit. He was ready to get started right away. And we got started. I thought he produced high quality work. I thought he worked fast. He definitely had strengths. One of his weaknesses, though, was when it came to accepting client feedback and being able to handle client change requests. That's when we encountered some difficulty there, and unfortunately, that relationship didn't work out in the long term. But I think I learned quite a bit from the experience. I learned that maybe there was opportunity for me to provide an environment where feedback is more of a regular occurrence. And that's something I've been actually thinking about. And we've been talking about some tips and ways and tactics on how to give feedback in different ways and how to provide feedback more regularly.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's key. A lot of leaders will wait until a performance review, which in some organizations only happens once a year.
Hmm.
So at that point, most employees, even if you've been taking really good notes all year long, most employees have forgotten the situation that you might be giving them feedback on. It's far too late and far too late for them to correct. And then they might feel like, wow, I feel dumb. I've been doing this wrong all this time and you didn't tell me. Like,
Hmm.
and that can really damage relationships for sure.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So, how do you manage feedback now with your team?
Hmm. Yeah, I think having those regular check-ins that are scheduled on the calendar are key. Having it could be a weekly, it could be a bi-weekly check-in, and having talking about progress, talking about updates, asking how things are going, asking what someone needs help with, and then providing them with feedback and asking for feedback too. I'm always asking others for feedback, myself, because I want to learn how I can improve, how I can become a better leader myself. So it really comes down to, I think, everybody just feeling more comfortable, having that safety to speak with each other when issues arise. It's a big thing that I'm looking to cultivate within my team.
That's great. And I think it really speaks to your value of transparency too, right? Like just giving that real time feedback so that they can make changes like on the fly. Yeah, that's awesome. So you've talked about some challenges. What are some examples that you've seen of either within your clients or your own experience? What are some examples that you've seen where leaders have had an influence on team members' loyalty to the company?
Mm. I've been fortunate to have seen a number of situations through my clients where I've seen leaders just build very engaged teams that have thrived over decades. And I love to observe and see what they're doing on the back end, because one of the key things I've seen leaders in highly engaged organizations exhibit is an ability to trust their teammates. And I've seen this in a few of my clients with leaders who have had highly engaged employees work for them for, you know, 10, 15, even 20 years. And these are small companies. These are companies of anywhere from 10 to, I would say, up to about 30, 40-ish staff. And the leaders, they tend to really care about creating an environment where, one, there's clear roles and responsibilities. People understand their role, they understand the broader vision of where the company wants to go, and they work collectively to build something that's bigger outside of themselves. And I've seen leaders really care and prioritize the needs of the people that work for them. And as a result, they're able to create these highly engaged teams that want to grow and work together.
Well, I can say that I would want to work for a leader like that, so it makes sense. You know, that trust is there. They're loyal to the leader. So, well, thank you for sharing that. As you think about your team, what are some achievements that you're proud of?
Oh, yeah. Of the team?
Yeah.
Yeah. I got one individual in particular that has been on my team for the last 5 years. He is incredible at what he does. He's very intelligent, very articulate. He's a really good person. He's just a good, kind, caring, respectful, thoughtful person that cares about other people. He cares
Mhm.
about the clients. He cares about the projects. And I'm really proud of him. I'm proud of the achievements that he's accomplished, because we've had some experiences in the past that were challenging. We've encountered good and bad. For example, a couple of years ago, we had encountered a client who became quite challenging to deal with. It was a situation where, how do I explain it? It was just a difficult client situation, and I thought this individual just handled the situation with so much grace and positivity, and rather than get stuck in the negative, he was solution focused from day one. He was, okay, this is the situation, this client is difficult, we're going to have to change our approach in order to manage the situation, in order to, I would say, shield the team from some of the situation that was going on. And he just took the ownership. He took the ownership to lead, to come in and set the standard for, okay, yeah, we still want to help you, client. You know, here's some options of how we could provide an alternative service sort of structure that was within our boundaries and the way that we work too. And he was able to turn around a situation that could have potentially gone in other directions. I was
And
very proud of that. Proud of
that's
that.
amazing. As he was going through that process with the client, how often did you jump in as the leader to share ideas, or how often did you let him run with it?
Yeah, a combination of both. This individual's quite experienced, older. He's had lots of experience dealing with a variety of situations. For me, I was always available on the back end. Him and I would communicate on a regular basis. He'd keep me updated on the situation. I was in the back, I was in the know of what was going on. I'd provide any suggestions I had. We chat about it. We talk about here's what I'm thinking, and he would share his thoughts too. But I wanted to allow him to have the opportunity to take the ownership of this client. He was the primary point of contact. So I would, for the most part, be engaged on the back, and I would still be involved with the client too. I would come onto our biweekly check-in calls with the client just to ensure that I was there and I was present. But the way that we handled that situation, I think, demonstrated great leadership on both of our behalfs, on my behalf and on my teammates' behalf as well.
Amazing. Sounds like a great case study for how you like to handle clients. A great example. Awesome. Thank you. Thinking about your experiences in leadership or being led, who are, or maybe what qualities are some that you like to emulate in how you lead your team?
Rethinking specific leaders.
Sure. Yeah. If you're able to comment on that.
Yeah, I don't think there's one specific style that maybe I try to emulate. I think I'm open to learning overall, so I want to take little bits and pieces from varying leaders of different styles, and that I find resonates with me to incorporate into my own style. When I think about leaders whom I look up to and who I admire, I look to those who are honest, leaders who are thoughtful and who genuinely care about their teammates. Those are the types of leaders that I look up to. I've been fortunate. I've had good leaders in my life. I've had great mentors. I've had great bosses and clients and people that I have looked up to. I can think back on one specific leader. This was a while ago, maybe about 10 years ago. I was working in a data analytics department of a company. And my leader, he was only maybe around 5 years older than me, but he was brilliant. Even though I was coming in at a young age, fresh, wide-eyed, he would take the time to sit down with me despite his busy schedule. He would walk me through how to do all sorts of things. He would train me on, all sorts of things that I just didn't expect that maybe he would take that sort of time and energy. And that meant a lot to me. That had a big impact on my ability to come in every day and feel engaged and feel part of the team. And as a result, I came in and I wanted to do more. I wanted to go above and beyond. And I think he saw that opportunity there to invest in working with me and training me and building me up so that I could take on more responsibility within time.
Wow. That's amazing to hear that. I love that. I know there's nuances in, first of all, every individual, but what about the differences between managing somebody who's an employee versus managing somebody who's a contractor?
Hmm. Yeah, there are differences between managing an employee versus managing a contractor. With an employee, there's typically more standard structure and procedure in place, and with contractors, there's both an opportunity and sometimes a challenge when it comes to work hours or work structure or how work is done. I like working with contractors. I like having that sort of flexibility to hire contractors for specific projects as they arise. I also find that contractors, they tend to come with a broader depth and wealth of experience. So there is an ability there to potentially just see situations and get the job done a bit faster and more efficiently, more effectively, which is a big thing I strive for. But as it relates to hiring, working with contractors versus employees, I think there's pros and cons to having both and having that dynamic mix.
How do you, when you think about hiring a contractor, how much do you care about values match? Is it different than with employees, or is it the same approach?
Overall, it's a similar approach for me. That's what I've learned over time. I think it's important to keep that approach and keep in alignment with the values, with that mindset fit, with finding people with the right attitude, people who are curious, creative, analytical thinkers, regardless of their age, regardless of their background. That's mostly what I'm looking for, whether they're an employee or whether they're a contractor. I'm looking for that sort of alignment fit.
Has it ever happened where you've had a team member who clearly didn't fit with the values? And if so, how did that trip you up?
Yeah, that's happened for sure in the past. I think with the experience of a web developer that we hired, there clearly were some issues there in the alignment and the fit, and primarily around that contractor's ability to take the accountability, especially when it came to the client feedback that he received and client requests for changes to his work. I think that contractor took the feedback quite personally, and I think maybe more as an attack on his own abilities and his intelligence, which from my point of view, I didn't think that was the case at all. I think the client was quite objective in keeping the feedback to be centered around the work, what needed to change around the work. And I tried my best to communicate with the contractor around the feedback and reassure him that it really wasn't an insult on his abilities. But that goes back to, I think, what we chatted about earlier, integrating feedback as a more regular part of the day-to-day within the organizational culture so that we can try and avoid these sorts of scenarios when they arise.
Definitely. As you think back to when you first became a leader or thought about becoming a leader, what advice would you have now for younger Anita?
I would tell younger Anita to go for it, to jump in and to be okay not having all of the answers.
That's huge. Yeah.
I would say I'm emerging leader myself. I'm continuing to learn and become a better leader and the leader that I aspire to be. I think for emerging leaders out there that are maybe in a senior role, maybe you're in a new managerial role, and perhaps you're battling some imposter syndrome, or you just feel like maybe you're not ready. I think we can become ready if we want to be. We just have to go out there, challenge ourselves. And there's so many resources out there. Read, take advantage of resources. I'm an Audible fan. I will go on Audible and I will look through business books. I'll look through leadership books. The one book I've got on my list, and we chatted about this one, The 5 Dysfunctions Teams. So that's on my list for reading. The last few years, I've been reading more around communications books. One of the good ones that I read maybe last year was 4DX. It's a really good one. It's all around strategies for assessing lead versus lag measures when you're building your teams.
Cool. I'll look that one up. I haven't heard of that one. Thank you. Well, thank you, Anita. It's been an amazing conversation. I think that you have shared a lot of different aspects that people maybe don't think about with respect to leadership. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much, Carrie.
We're happy you joined us for Suits and Sneakers. If you want to be an expert guest, look for the link in the show notes. Don't forget to follow us on Spotify or YouTube.